Welcome to Conversations with Toy, a blogcast tackling life one episode at a time. This is the time to air out life's craziest moments. This space is all about speaking about life's hang-ups and ways in which we can leave better than when we started. Topics are all about ways we can find space to be better in life, love, mental space, and health.
Happy Friday. I hope that you have had the most amazing week. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Toy. I am Toy, your podcaster. I am also a content creator, freelance writer, blogger, influencer, social media. I don't know what to call the last thing that I do, but the two hats that I love wearing the most, because I do wear a lot of hats, is being a wife and mother of 3 amazing children. Welcome to the show. I 1000% believe that if you are here, you are not here by accident. You're not here just because you just happened to stumble upon something and it sounded like it might be a good idea. This was for you. This episode is for you. Here on this podcast, I talk about all things mental health and wellness, things that are happening on these internet streets, conversations that we need to have that go a little left sometimes because of the things that we are all going through. Whenever I see anything happening on the internet streets and it's talking about mental health and wellness, I bring it to the forefront. Some of our most private conversations actually needs to be more of a public to a certain extent. And what do I mean by that? Oftentimes when you're going through something, especially when it comes to mental health and wellness, you think that you're some magical unicorn. This situation could only be happening to you, and therefore you just feel alone. But in full reality, oftentimes more than not, we don't realize how connected we are because we are all going through sometimes the very same things. I say all that to say, this is why Conversations with Toy has started. This is almost like an extension of my blog. As a writer, I talk about the things that resonate with myself and then the things that I've gotten right and things, sometimes a lot of the times it's some of the things that I've gotten wrong. I have no problems talking about me. I feel like I'm the best person that could talk about my life. I learned that the hard way. When you allow other people to become the bridge to the story, when you allow other people to kind of like formulate their own thoughts, that's when you get all caught up and worked up. I am from another thought process as I'm getting older that I'll tell it before you can. And the reason is because by the time you tell it, you're going to lie. But the time I tell it, I'm going to shine light on the truth. So that is what this podcast is about. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for listening. Please do 3 things. 1, you're already listening, so you're already halfway on your way. 2, I want you to share this with someone else. And 3, if you have time, go ahead and do a quick little review on whatever platform that you are listening to this on. I would love to hear your thoughts, love to hear your suggestions. That is so I can do better. This podcast for this week, let's talk about last week's podcast. Last week's podcast, we had the People's Bishop, Bishop Foreman, and it was an amazing conversation. I am a PK, which is a preacher's kid, and it amazes me that as I've gotten older, they say real recognizes real. Having conversations with people that goes deeper than some of the things that I've experienced. I'm one of those people who have experienced church hurt. I talked about this, not necessarily my personal experience, but that some people experience this, and I loved how Bishop Foreman was very clear about just because you had church hurt doesn't mean that you don't need to just go away from God or go away from God's house when it's just the people that are doing it, that are being a nuisance, that are being hurtful, saying bad things. All those things are 100% true. So if you didn't get a chance to listen to last week's podcast, I'm going to encourage you to do so. There's a lot of things that is going on in this internet world, but one conversation in particular, especially when it deals with mental health and wellness. There is a young lady on TikTok. I'm not sure if this story has made it onto Facebook or to Instagram, but don't you worry, trust and believe. If I'm talking about it, it's going to come and find its way onto these other platforms. But the story that I saw took place originally, my original that I saw, it was on TikTok. There's a young lady that used to be a therapist. She has decided to, forgo her license, quote unquote, turn it back in, and has denounced being a therapist. She says that God told her that he needs more people to be on the healing side versus those who be more on the diagnostic side. Now, I'm going to take a little crack at this. This may be an opinion that may not agree with yours, and that's okay, because in this world we are surrounded by folks that don't agree, that are not yes men and yes women. So 100%, there are aspects to what she said that is so built in this strong ethics of church talk. What do I mean by that? Bishop Foreman and I had that conversation last week about wellness and the church. I've written blogs about wellness in the church. I've talked about personal experience about wellness, mental health and wellness, and the church. It's not the church. It's most church folk. Just because you identify that you are struggling in an area, let's say if you were dealing with like bipolar, if you were dealing with that, or you have anxiety, or you have depression, or you have these things, you'll have people talk about, don't claim that for your life. You got to rebuke the devil. You got to stand up and that God, that you're made whole. Your mind is not this. You're not weak. You're not all these things. And it's built upon church rhetoric. Okay. First and foremost, you can have faith as big as a mountain. But if you have a moment, which we all experience these moments when our things begin to shift. Okay. We may need extra help, medication, therapists, all these different avenues, psychotherapy. There are 1,001 ways. That doesn't mean that your faith is small. That does not mean that you are not, in the right frame of mind to the point where God does not, love you because you're choosing to do all these different things. He did not. So when I heard the young lady say that basically people with this mental health are basically like demons, and they're just calling these things out. And I thought to myself, my God, this was exactly the type of situation that I grew up in when I was in church. You couldn't say that, I'm dealing with this mental health issue because one, it didn't exist. It didn't exist because you're supposed to have the mind of Christ. I literally can hear my ex-bishop, I should say, in my head saying those things. You got to have the mind of Christ, and if you have the mind of Christ, you got to think on these things that are pure, think on these things that are lovely, think on these things that are just. That is the Beatitudes, and I'm 100% on those things. But in between those things are real people with real lives that are dealing with different, real things. Not naming and claiming it isn't going to stop you from having a mental health breakdown. Not naming it and claiming is going to stop you from being able to be touched by the things that mental health could possibly bring your way. What needs to happen is having a better understanding, a better conversation about the truth of what people are dealing with. Because like I said from the very intro, there are 1,000,001 people who believe that they are an anomaly. They believe that they are some type of special unicorn, and that for whatever reason they've been dealt this life, and then they feel by themselves, when in reality there's more people going through what they're going through than not. Okay. And there are levels, just like there are levels in different mental health. You can have bipolar. You might not have bipolar 1. You might have bipolar 2. You might have this. You might have that. There are levels. There are levels, and you're not considered to be a devil, a demon, or unwilling to be, to increase your faith. None of these things go into play. None of these things go into play when you consider and think about mental health. So I had to go back and make sure I listened to her one more time to get something clear. She said that people don't have mental health issues. What it is that the devil and demons have access to your mind and to your soul. I'm going to say this with all the love that I can. There is a small portion of what she's saying to be true. Here's what I mean by that. I do not mean for y'all to come for me talking about, she just said we were being occupied by demons. But in the Bible, there are different things that are being said, different conversations that are being had. And how I grew up was that, again, the enemy can't come against your body. He can't touch your soul. He can't touch this, but he can touch your mind. If he can make you believe that something is happening, then you will believe it, and then that's what you'll do. That is what she's talking about when she's talking about the demons are occupying your mind, the spirits are occupying your mind. That is what she's talking about. A lot of times when we're dealing with these negative feelings, when we have all these different things happening, it's like, what is being done? How is this being presented? All these different things. So again, that is where she's getting the information, but it's also being misconstrued because, again, just like any other book, just like with any other thing, just like with anything in life, if somebody wants to misconstrue things, if somebody wants to take it to the left, they will take it to the left. They want to take it to the right, they're going to take it to the right. At the end of the day, there are people who have mental health issues. These are things that some people are born with. These are things that have to be worked out. These are things that people have to get skill sets and things to try to figure out how to live a better lifestyle with the things that they are dealing with. It is not a time for us to say the devil is attacking you and all these things are happening and this was something that this is what you should be doing. This is how you should live. This is your portion for whatever you didn't do. Some people say this is your portion for what you didn't do in another life. Let's 86 all that. Here's the thing that I need us to do. I need us to learn how to bring our faith together to live and how we can make ourselves live a practical life. How can we apply the word of God to our lives to be effective? Her going online and saying the things that she's saying, when you read the comments, is literally driving more people away from God than it is bringing people to him. There are Christian-based therapists who use the faith, they use the word, they use the Bible, and they bring the two together, and then they tell you how to think about practicality. There are actual scriptures that you can read that help you in times of anxiety, that can help you in the spirit if you're dealing with the spirit of depression. There are different scriptures that can help you. It's also learning how to use those things as tools along with mental health and wellness tools to bring yourself together to be whole and healthy. I wish for people to be a healthy person that's in mind, body, and soul. A lot of times I love the people who don't go around proclaiming like, I'm a Christian, I love God, I do this and I don't do that. I love the people who you can tell just because they treat people right. You can tell because they have light in their lives. You can tell by the way they carry themselves, how they walk, how they talk. They don't go around scripture, knowing every scripture and quoting everyone, because everybody that can regurgitate the word don't mean that they're living it. And I hate to get churchy on y'all, but I had to take it there. Only because this is very divisive. This is very divisive for people who are trying to do their best to live whatever there is that they're trying to live to become a better person, a better version of themselves. This is counterproductive. This is counterproductive in my mindset. I really do believe that it is. And so with all these different conversations, unfortunately, again, I feel like it's extremely important when I'm talking about this podcast is for mental health and wellness. It's important to have these conversations when you see things happening on these internet streets. Everybody is in an uproar about it. And I'm saying to you, if you are dealing with mental health issues, regardless of what it is, it could be schizophrenia, it could be bipolar, it could be, again, there's levels. There are levels. I want you to get a close connection with somebody who can help you here on earth, that God has gifted to have them go to all that years of schooling, all that years of training to help you become the better version of yourself. Because again, I pray all the time, God, keep me and keep my mind always. Yes, if I'm having a mental health breakdown, I will pray. But there are many a days when I can't even get a prayer through. I can't say, God, help me. Sometimes I just say, God, because that's all I got. Right? I can't do the cute little prayers. Like if you ask me to pray, I could listen, ask my friends. If you call me to pray, I'm not going to do that praying in my spirit. I'm going to get out loud and I'm going to pray. But even with all the beautiful words and God puts on my heart to pray, at the end of the day, there are many times in life where you can't get a prayer through. You ever go to an old school church and this old song said, somebody prayed for me, had me on their mind, took the time and prayed for me. I'm so glad they prayed. I'm so glad they prayed. I'm so glad they prayed for me. Why is somebody glad that somebody prayed for them? Is because sometimes you can't get a prayer through. Life be life and so hard you can't think right. Life be life and so hard you might not react. You might be more reactive than you are taking a step back. You might be so reactive that the people around you are not knowing what's going on because you could be going through a real hardship mentally, emotionally. Listen. I was talking to my therapist. I was talking to my therapist who didn't decide to turn in their license, who didn't decide to give up their profession. And we were talking about, I kept telling him again, this thing that kept hitting me every year. I go through seasonal depression. every year. I don't go through seasonal depression because I lack faith. I don't have any faith. I don't go through seasonal depression because I'm just, this and that. I'm going through seasonal depression because it's just what happens. Right? It's just the way the chemicals in my mind work and the chemicals in my brain work and the things that happen around me that deal with this emotional pool. And so I was talking to him about, the seasonal depression has been kicking my behind. If you've been listening to the podcast, these last few, I have experienced seasonal depression a lot sooner. Again, normally Christmas will camouflage, cover it up. But God was like, let me take the bandit off. You can do Christmas, you can do the holidays, you can do all those things, but here you're going to go through this, right? I went through it. Here's the crazy part. Not only am I experiencing seasonal depression, but I'm experiencing burnout. The very things that make me smile, the very things that I find joy in, I'm like, I can't even open a box. I have boxes right now that are literally at my front door, in the inside of the front door, that I haven't even opened, haven't even touched. Because again, burnout is so real. And mixing that with that seasonal depression, mixing that with like triggers. Everybody has a trigger, something that will make you feel away, that will make you go, you start thinking left, you start talking left. Everybody has them. And I've been experiencing more and more of them as I'm watching like the different things that's going on in my life, different family members that's been getting sick, things that I have going on in my life, trying to maintain, trying to hold on, trying to do right. All these things are happening at one time, but I don't believe for 2.3 seconds that means that I'm not full of faith, or that means that I'm not thinking or doing the things that I need to be doing. What it has been doing is made me go back to making sure that I'm being anchored in God, that I am doing the things that makes the most sense for myself, and learning how to be okay in that. Because that's the part we don't want to talk about. Being okay in that is important. So again, I had to talk about it because it is definitely something that's happened on these internet streets. I feel like the conversation needs to be had, that God does not go against our therapy. God does not go against medication. God does not go against any of those things. What I need you to do, what I need you to focus on is what is working best for you, and then do just that. Get better at using the skills that you're learning in therapy. Like every time I go to therapy, I'm learning a new skill. Like, hey, don't respond to certain things because they're trying to pull on you. And then when I practice it and I put it into practice and I get better at it, it allows me to be better equipped for not the same type of situation happen, but if the spirit of, or the commonality of what happens pulls up again in a different form, I'll have the skill set to know when to speak, when to pull back, when to retreat, when to pull forward, when to speak up and say something that needs to be said instead of holding it in. Those are the types of things, those are the types of skills that you bring and you learn as you're going through your wellness journey. With a wellness journey, just like when you take a trip somewhere, you would love to be able to take your trip, get in your vehicle or your plane or your train or whatever your transportation, right? And you would love to just have a seamless situation. You go from point A, you get to point B, you go from point B back to point A, and that would be beautiful. But real life is sometimes there's turbulence, and sometimes there's pit stops. And then sometimes you have a situation where you might get an accident, you have to get a rental car and start all over. There might be times when you lose or have to change a tire. There are times when life all the time. Life's from everybody. And when life is lifing for all of us, it's going to matter how we choose to show up. And let me just say this, if you can't show up fancy and you just simply showed up, you've done more than enough, because some people are struggling in that show up. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. So just want to dispel that in case you stumbled upon that on your social media, that one, you would not have heard it for the first time. And then number two, you'll understand exactly what you need to be doing, how you need to focus to get through. So let's do a quick check-in. This week, I have not gone to a lot of events. There's not been that many. However, I am going to one today that is making me super excited. Today's event is the Philadelphia Flower Show. If you know anything, and I do mean anything about the Philadelphia Flower Show, you know that it's probably the third largest in the country. No, it's actually, no, my bad. It is the largest one in the country. And there's only like 3 that even tops the scale that are in the country, but this is the biggest. It brings people from all over the world. It's absolutely an amazing show. If you love flowers, if you love plants, if you love that type of vibe, there's something for everybody. There's things you could do like I like to go play with the butterflies. They are so much fun. The making of you can make a flower crown. There's marketplaces where you can leave with flowers. There's marketplaces where you can leave where the support small business owners. It's amazing. The actual displays are larger than life. I've already seen the markups. I already know what they're going to look like. So I can't wait to see it, from taking it from drawing to visualization and see it up close. This is one of those events that opens up spring. Listen, spring is knocking at the door, and I know for one, anybody that has been struggling in this winter time should be having their hands full of joy, because the flower show is going to be something that's going to just uplift, open your eyes. I love walking in, smelling the fresh flowers. I love walking in, and just it feels like it just changes and shifts my mood. And because, again, we're trying to come out of seasonal depression, we're trying to come out of this, winter sloth. The Philadelphia Flower Show is one of those ones that helps. I also was able to get tickets to go to the after hours party, which I cannot wait. I believe it's usually like the Saturday before the last day. When I tell you it's a party, it's one of the biggest parties to go to. You need to be in the building. So I can't wait for that. I am really looking forward to what today will bring as far as the activities and seeing other people that I know and just walking around. I'm going to have a full flower day. Let me explain something to you. I'm going to the flower show. I'm going to Longwood Gardens. It's just going to be a flower time. And I'm absolutely cannot wait to have a little bit of me time. I love having me time built in with content creation. This is the second or third time in the last 2 weeks that I've been able to put that together and have that work out. And your girl's excited. I'm excited. So if you are in the Philadelphia area, or you can get into the Philadelphia area, make sure that you go and stop at the flower show. I will come back and talk about it next week and talk about all the things and just the things that I enjoy, my favorite parts, things that could improve, whatever the case may be. I'm here to talk about it all. But again, this is a great show. I hope you get a chance to come see it. We're going to talk about this one more time because this keeps coming up. 4 stories on the internet this week about going no contact, and while going no contact, someone passes away. I saw a sister that unfortunately passed away, a mother that unfortunately passed away, a cousin. All of these things are real. Listen, people who go no contact do not want to go no contact. Let me repeat that one more time. People who go no contact do not want to go no contact. They would prefer if they were in a situation where they could actually be in peace and harmony with those who they are going no contact. Think about it. Nobody wants to be without their mother. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how people look at it. Nobody wants to be without a parent. We were born to parents. We want to be underneath our parents, to be loved and cherished. We want to cherish and love our parents. Listen, if and when you do actually have to go no contact for whomever you may have to go no contact with, nobody wakes up and decides this is something that they would want to do. This is not something they're like, you know what? I've been waiting my whole life to go no contact. That's not something that actually happens. Nobody wants it, and nobody wins when the family is feuding. So when you hear somebody going no contact, please stop saying the following: you only get one mama, you only get one so-and-so, you only get one this. Trust and believe they have outweighed all of the decisions that would have led them to try to not go no contact. But people are going no contact not just because of quote unquote disrespectful behavior. This is not a situation where you made me mad and so now I'm here. This is not a situation where you said something I didn't like and now I'm here. When someone has gone no contact, it's usually due to a pattern of abuse. Normally, it's a pattern of abuse that they have decided that it's best for them to go no contact to keep their peace than to keep opening themselves up to the level of abuse. Ta-da! That is your no contact explained to you in less than 30 seconds. Why? Because it's important to continue to have the conversation, because too many of us who are never, and let me not say us, because I've actually gone no contact with people. For those who have never done it and don't fathom, that means you're in a good situation, that you've never felt the need to go no contact because you're in a healthy relationship with the people that are supposed to be healthy with you. Okay? So What happens now that we're seeing is that people have gone no contact, and while they're going no contact, their family member, their loved one, their friend has passed away. And when someone passes away, that is it. That is final. You can't go back and change time. You cannot have conversations. It is now a permanent door. It's now a permanent no contact, where now it became one, it was a choice. Now it becomes no choice of your own. The guilt that I'm sure people feel, the anguish that people feel, you have to ask yourself when you decide to go no contact. If you go no contact and nothing happens, and or some, God forbid, something does happen, you have to say to yourself, is your peace worth it? Even at the point of death, do you truly feel that that's a decision that you have made? And I'm going to tell you this, I want you to make that decision for you. People who say, I would never talk to my mom, I would never not talk to my mom, I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do that. Again, when you use the word I, that's the power for you. That means that situation is working out for you. You're choosing, you're making a choice. Don't use your I and take away somebody else's choice. Like, for instance, around the holidays, especially like specifically Mother's Day. Around Mother's Day, there are a lot of more people who literally struggle. Mother's Day and Christmas is one of the two biggest holidays for people who are in grief. So when people are in grief and they hear somebody say, I'm going no contact with their mother, and because their mother has passed, regardless of the level of relationship or lack thereof, a lot of people through their grief would be like, I would love to have another opportunity to speak to my mom. That is something you, with your I statement, makes sense for you, may not make sense for someone else. It may not make sense to have somebody who's been openly abusive to you to continue to have access to you. When you go no contact, it doesn't have to come from a place of anger. Sometimes it comes to a place of, I'm closing a chapter. Sometimes it comes from a place that I'm just ending things because this is what works and it's best for myself. Let us be very comfortable being and doing the things that resonate, because we cannot continue to live for other people. So I want to talk about reframing. Reframing while you're in the midst of a mental health breakdown, a mental health quote unquote issue. How do you reframe a situation to not only I don't want you to pacify it. I don't want you to put a band-aid on what you're going through, but I want you to learn how to reframe. Because sometimes in the midst of reframing something, it can actually help you and help you get through your mental health issue, your mental health trigger a lot quicker. For instance, the other day, I would say maybe 2 days ago, I was going through something. I was literally having such an emotional issue. I could not regulate. I could not self-regulate. I was extremely frustrated. I was frustrated at all different things, like why my kids didn't do this. Why is this happening? Blah, blah, blah. Went through all this long list of stuff. And so when I sat down for just a few minutes, now, of course, this was unfortunately, after I had already had like a little blow up. After I already had that, I had to ask myself, what is the situation telling me? So I had to reframe. For instance, with my kids, I have great kids, respectful, they're well-mannered, they do great work. Everyone knows them to be super respectful, nice, caring individuals. Love that for us, right? But in the midst of me having this little mental health issue, when I was trying to convey my frustrations with my kids at the time, what it was telling me, how I reframed it was, I don't tell my kids enough of how they're triggering me prior to the trigger, right? And so at the moment, yes, this was after I had already felt like I was losing control. But instead of that, I was just like, listen, hey, guys, this makes me feel like this. Learning how to use my I statements so that I can convey what the problem is instead of just focusing on the problem. Telling them, hey, when I ask you to do something and you're not doing it, it makes me feel like this. And I'm feeling overwhelmed because the pileup of you guys feeling like it's disrespect is becoming a lot larger than I'm able to carry. That revealed that reframing of the situation, learning to understand the situation, learning to put things in perspective and figure out what is the bad behavior trying to tell me, what is the good behavior trying to tell me, what boundaries do I need to put into place. For instance, I'm at a place now where I can tell my kids, hey, you can't do this and do that, because when you do this and do that, it's something that is not working for the situation, it's not working for me, and it's doing this and making me feel a certain way, and I need to communicate that. But when you reframe the situation, when you're able to reframe why your things are happening the way it is, you can then set boundaries. You can do the same thing with relationships. I had to tell my husband, hey, when you're saying that you're struggling to do something for me and you're telling me ahead of time, when you do that, all I'm hearing is you either don't want to do something, or I'm hearing that this is like, I'm not worthy of whatever the situation is. This unfortunately stems from like anticipation of like birthdays and major holidays and feeling like, oh, this was a letdown. I didn't feel like this was like, I didn't feel celebrated, or I didn't feel all these different things. And so I said to him, I understand why you may say the things that you're saying, but I'm not able to comprehend that. That does not work for me. I'm not at a place where you can kind of like pull back a little bit or tell me that you're not going to do something almost to protect my anticipation. I would rather for you just to let things happen and allow me to work through it, because I'm telling you, this is how this works for me. It allows me to reframe the real reason as to why I'm upset. It's not about, okay, you didn't do this, you didn't get me this, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the way that, again, I have to reframe my expectations. I have to tell you where I am instead of holding it in, thinking that if I tell you that you'll get more mad. I'd rather have a conversation. I'd rather tell you what the situation is, because now I can place a boundary. Do not tell me something that's going to be super disappointing about a holiday that you know that I love. Don't tell me about it. Don't show me that. Let the situation unfold. Do not come and tell me ahead of time thinking that you're protecting me, because it's not a protection. It's actually going to trigger me very quickly, right? It's going to trigger me to a place, and I don't want to be triggered. So reframing the things that you have going on, reframing the mindset, reframing how you do things. It's super duper important. And I want us to get used to how we reframe things, like what's real and what's not about the situation. Are you really fat? Okay, cool. Are you some person that's just like not worthy of love because of it? Okay, no. I don't like the way that I look in the mirror because of the weight that I've gained from, all these different things that may be happening at one time. But I want to make sure that I understand that I'm worthy of love. And so while I'm loving myself, I'm going to take care of my body a little differently. And then after time, I'm going to see myself differently in the mirror, because that's something that I desire to see. It's a reframe. We need to learn how to reframe in different avenues. If your boss is coming to you and telling you that you did something wrong, and all you're hearing is, I'm never going to get it right, I'm always going to be a failure, they're looking to fire me, it's not the right way to reframe it. The right way to reframe it is, what can I learn from the situation so that then I don't continue to repeat something and I can become a better employee. Reframing takes a lot of work. Because if you're frustrated, if you're mad, if you're angry, if you're hurt, you can't always reframe. This is why, if you've listened to the podcast, I've talked about having a plan in place before you need the plan. The time to put a plan into place is not after the plan is necessary. The time to put the plan into place is before it becomes a need. When we were dealing with COVID, and when I say we, I mean the world was dealing with COVID, there was no plan. I didn't even consider when I started to hear about rumbling. See, I had an inside scoop, especially here in Philadelphia at the time. I had an inside scoop that we were being closed down. And I was told within enough hours for me to make some moves, right? And I am telling you, because this is what happened. I got the phone call that morning from a reliable source. The source was spot on. This source is usually 100% spot on. When I received the phone call, the first thing I did was call my husband. And then I went and had a conversation about what we need to do. And then I went to them stores and started executing the plan. Again, because I had enough notice. Mental health doesn't give notices. It doesn't give you a heads up, you're about to go into a trigger. It doesn't say heads up, you're going to feel super disrespected. You're not going to be able to regulate your emotions, so you should be prepared for it. No, the time to prepare is before you need it. So that if you're the type of person that gets really angry and you start yelling, because we talked about how, like, especially for Black women, people are like, oh, she's so angry, when she may just be going through something mentally, right? We talked about this before. But the time to have the plan into place is if you get this way, if this is how you're feeling, if you're feeling overwhelmed, this is the steps that you're going to take to bring yourself back to your normal, whatever your normal baseline is. What is the plan? And having that plan, be very clear about that plan prior to needing that plan is going to help. Again, I talked about when you can't get something through, you got to have somebody else or something into place so that it can help you. You need that. You really do. So how do you reframe your story? How do you reframe your thoughts? For instance, I told my kids yesterday that I was overwhelmed because we left the house at 6:45. We have not been home since since we left at 6:45. It was getting later in the day. I could be real snippy if I get tired or if I get hangry. It's just something, it is what it is. On top of that, I was dealing with a major headache. So what I said to my kids was, hey, I am tapped out. I need us to get together so we can get out of here quicker, because we were at my son's basketball game for the last thing that we had to do for the rest. I mean, not game, but it's practice. And I was like, hey, I'm going to need us to get focused on getting our stuff packed, making sure we don't leave anything. Let's get focused because I'm about ready to tap out. Tapping out and telling them that is because I learned prior to is that being able to frame the situation or reframe it helps. It's not that I'm choosing to be snippy or I'm choosing to be hangry that becomes the problem. The focus of having a plan is, hey, if you're feeling overwhelmed because you're tired, or if you're feeling overwhelmed because you're hungry, before you blow up, stop and let the people know in your circle, hey, I am dealing with this big emotion. And if you can name it, it's even better. And I need us to try to figure out how we can I need to remove myself from a situation. And since I'm responsible, like I am for the kids, it was important for me to say, hey, I'm getting ready to be at a tap out moment. So I need us to focus on getting up out of here. I need us to focus on trying to get to the car as soon as we can. I need us to focus on getting on and out onward so we can get up out of here. And it worked. That reframing of just saying, hey, this is where I am, this is what's going on. But the truth of the matter is, yes, you're hangry or you're tired or you're cranky or you're this and that. But the realness of it is that there were things you put onto your plate within that given day that you should have not. And so the last person that puts something on your plate ends up getting the brunt of the deal because you didn't say throughout the day as things were being added that you couldn't handle it. You didn't want to do that because you wanted to look a certain way. You wanted to look strong. You wanted to look, mentally agile. You wanted to do all those things, but you got to reframe and put a plan in place and work your plan ahead of time. You may need to write your plan out. It may be like a red light. Some people do the red light, the stoplight system, and they do everything that once they hit that yellow, that they can pull themselves back to a green before they get to that red. Again, it doesn't matter the system that you use. It doesn't matter the analogy that you use. The concept is called reframing, and you've got to start reframing the truth. This hurt my feelings because of this. I'm feeling some way because you did or did not do. I need less of this and more of that. Those things being into play causes me to respond in a certain way. And although I don't intend or I don't mean for that to happen a certain way, it's not stopping the situation. So again, reframing is important. It's more important than a lot of people give it credit, but reframing is one of those tools that you'll need to be able to use when you're able to use it. Because sometimes you need to have an emergency plan. Hey, if I go and I know I need to get from point A to point B, but in the midst of getting from point A to point B, my car breaks down. I tried to catch a train and I missed that. I tried to catch a plane. They had no more seats. There's so many things that could happen. You got to have an emergency plan while you're working the things that you're working through on the inside of you. Reframing will help you when you're able to do it and when you can't. Like if you're like, hey, I am not in the position to reframe. I don't have time to sit around and figure out like, oh, what's going on? Why did you hurt that? Why did you say that? I 100% agree that you probably can't, but you need to find another system. It could be a mind dump. That's what I love to do, where I write all the things that I'm keep hearing in my head, get it on paper because then it gives it life. And why do you want it to give it life? So that you can use it to reveal your next step to become a better version of you, your next step to not allow your trigger to overtake you, your next step for being open and having an honest conversation where other people would shy away from that. Again, what is your next step and how can you use reframing to help you get there? That is the kit and caboodle. Like, how can you become a little bit better at honoring yourself, being true to what you need, being able to set boundaries and love the people that are around you? That's what it boils down to. One of the things that I want to end the podcast with is this concept of is that I'm not, when people say to themselves, I'm not moving in the space, the pace that I feel like I should, right? I feel like I should be a little further in my journey. I feel like I should do this. I feel like I should do that. And instead of saying I should be further along, let's try to say, hey, I am moving at the pace that my nervous system can handle. If sometimes when you move too fast, just like moving too slow will stunt your growth, moving too fast will stunt your growth as well. Because while you're moving super fast to get to whatever this imaginary place should be, what happens is you're missing the checks and balances, the principles. You're missing all of those. You're missing the triggers that were designed to help you so that you could slow down, so that you weren't so stressed out. Okay? So I really want us to reframe. Think about what we're reframing from, how we're able to change what we say out of our mouths to give less power to the things that is happening negative, to turn that around. And here's the thing. Don't think I'm thinking or talking about anything about that fake positivity where you're like, it's okay. My house is burning, but it's all right. No. Your house is burning. You need to get up out of there. Your house is burning. You need to find out the cause. Your house is burning. You can say, listen, I'm grateful for my life, health, and strength, but I'm mad as hell because I have no place to live. That's the type of stuff I want us to use. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to common sense. Okay? Listen, you know what you're supposed to do this weekend. You have one task, and that one task is to find one thing that you simply enjoy that has nothing to do with the titles, has nothing to do with your list of things that you have to get done, that has nothing to do with that. You have to find a way every weekend. Once you should be doing it every day, but specifically on the weekend that brought you joy. If you was almost like if you went to work on Monday or you were going to school on Monday. Remember when the teachers back in the day would say, how's everybody's weekend? Is there anybody that want to share? And when they call on you, you say, I didn't do anything. I didn't go anywhere. We didn't do anything. Instead of having that be a response and your call a response, find a way to find those joys so that you have something to bring to the table, because the more joy we have around and in us, the better. The absolute better. So find one activity that you love, one activity that you enjoy, something that has nothing to do with your titles, nothing to do with your errands, has nothing to do with all the things you have on your plate, has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with, again, that reframing, that being, taking care of your mental health and wellness. It has everything to do with that. Does that make sense? I'm hoping that it does. Thank you. Thank you for rocking it out with us for another episode of Conversations with Toy. We do have guests lined up. Do not fret. Do not worry. They're on their way. But I also enjoy having a conversation with you as well. I hope that something that I said, something that I highlighted, made you feel seen, made you feel heard in a real way and in a positive way. I hope that you're able to reframe the way that you think about yourself, the way that you talk to yourself, and the way that you speak to others. Those are 3 things that are super important. With that being said, thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Toy, and I will see you again next Friday.
Thank you as always for joining me, and I know that even in the deepest or joyful conversations that there's something we can learn and apply. Until next time, I hope that you are doing better. If not, we will be back to talk some more and handle it. Peace to you and yours. Stay grounded.